Hello everybody, welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It's April 13th, 2019. As always, is joining me, my partner in crime.
Yep.
Alright, you're frozen up there on your camera. There it goes. It might be Discord.
Okay.
Let me just change our server to south. There we go. It'll work. I've just been having to change servers on Discord a bunch lately. I'll blame that. Anyway, it is once again time for us to talk about the tabletop news of the week. It is our 108th episode of doing this, and we have an interesting docket for you with the last 2 weeks of things that have happened in the world of tabletop. Of course, we're going to start out with, I do want to talk a little bit about Magic the Gathering War of the Spark. We know a little bit more about what they're doing mechanics-wise, and I do want to talk about that. Then, Wizards on the D&D side has announced an Acquisitions Incorporated sourcebook. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Space 1889 has brought us a book all about Mars. And then we have some board games. There's Bubble Tea by Renegade Game Studio, where you take charge of a bubble tea shop. Dungeon Knights, a source book by Trollish Games, or Trollish Delver Games. I keep trying to call them something else. Z-Man Games has announced a choose-your-own-adventure board game called War of the Evil Power Master. So if you've ever played one, or if you've ever read one of those choose-your-own-adventure books, that's how it's kind of supposed to be. And finally, we're going to end up with a unique take on Ticket to Ride London, where instead of train routes, it's bus routes. Why don't we dive into a little talk about Magic, though? Because we're beginning to see a little bit about War of the Spark, and I think we talked a little bit about when they early announced some stuff, how it's a set that's supposed to have a bajillion planeswalkers. And I have to say, they do, but they do a couple of unique things which are a little different than ever before. And I think that's the first thing I want to talk about because it is a big change to Magic. They're not all mythic anymore. We have uncommon and rare planeswalkers now. That's a big change. And many of the planeswalkers have just effects. They don't rely on loyalty abilities as much. Most of them only have two, and then have some kind of ongoing effect relate to them. So I think that's the kind of biggest thing that we've seen. I think I did hear someone talking about this entire set, and this set will probably be relatively powerful in comparison to a lot of sets, and we're not going to be arguing against that. They do have things like Proliferate, our good friend, making a comeback. The ability to put more tokens into play and stuff like that. They play out to the interesting storyline as I've seen through the spoilers so far. I've kept up with checking the spoilers, and it's interesting. I have to say that I don't want to go into any card in particular in case until they're out, we maybe don't want to hit into too many spoilers. But they do have a good zombie theme. Of course, because their entire plot line is a zombie armies invading the city of Ravnica. That's a simplified version of it. They also have done some interesting things that they have hybrid mana planeswalkers, and they're all uncommon. So they only have one ability, and then a ongoing ability. A good example would be one of them that costs 6 mana that... It has 7 loyal counters. It can only tick down 3 to exile target creature. So it can only do that twice. Kaya, Bane of the Dead. But
I saw there was also a white one that only had a tick down to create walls.
Yeah. And they're the uncommon level, which is I think this is kind of what Planeswalkers needed. Planeswalkers has always been this insanity kind of thing. And I feel like almost now we need something a little more controlled, because granted, I will tell you, the Wanderer's ability, it's Retribution, which was in Alliances was a 2-mana spell to exile something with high power. You know, that was something that existed. So having a 4 mana cost creature that can do that twice, plus it can prevent all non-combat damage to be dealt to you and permanents you control. I mean, that's really good. It's good, but it's not so insane, you know, because...
Oh, yeah, like the light white one that's... you get hexproof.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out with 5. It only costs 1 white and 2 colorless.
Yeah.
And it has a -2 tick down to create a 0/3 wall.
Yeah. And there are other, like, I've seen some cards in here that give loyalty counters a lot more. Which, I mean, I think is, like,
something that I feel like in any other set, I feel like because of the nature of Planeswalkers would have been not as good. But now we have this new almost feeling with them that you have your uncommon ones, which only have tick downs, and then you're like, you know, so you almost are using something else to fuel them if you want to keep them around.
Right.
And it's still targetable is the thing, too. Like, I feel like it's, in a way, the you have a hexproof one is a good example of talking about this. The wall tokens, that's cool. It's nice. It's not super great. It's okay. The hexproof, that's pretty decent. The thing is, there are more ways to target that, though.
Now, one that's actually really interesting, too, that's in white, that's one of the uncommon ones, is also the Wanderer, which is prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control.
Non-combat damage.
Oh, non-combat. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's fine, but
and
still
exile target creature, and then it's a -2 tick down to exile creature with power 4 or greater.
Yeah.
I think this balances out Planeswalkers in a way that never would.
No, I agree. We needed less because they're still... When Wizards made them legendary, they opened up the way to this, because it still is the same legendary rules that's always existed. You can only have one out at a time. And so it doesn't matter that they're uncommon. Yes, I could have 1 billion copies of them, and yes, both those abilities are pretty decent. But being a Planeswalker means it can be targeted like a player, so it can be targeted with direct damage spells. Things that target permanents can hit them. And if someone really wanted to get rid of it, they could hit you with damage.
Yeah, they can attack your Planeswalker.
Yeah.
No, I think this actually balances them out, because I always thought they were a little too overpowered.
No, when they were all the mythic ones, they balanced the power out to them being at mythic rarity. They were done something really special and crazy and expensive. And I'm not saying that there can't be the crazy, expensive mythic ones still. Those are fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea to have other options, too, that aren't as crazy. Because it'd be like, oh, if someone got one and you're playing against them, it's like, oh, God, not a freaking Planeswalker. And it was like, I have to have Planeswalkers in my deck to stay competitive.
And now when you say, I can have some Planeswalkers in my deck to stay competitive, it means you could have just some of the uncommon ones, or like a rare one. Granted, if you got a mythic one, great! But it's like getting any other mythic rare at that point in time. And yes, it's still the same thing that you can still get that, you can still get crazy ones. But then you can get crazy spells anyway. I mean, there are plenty of mythics that you point them out and you're like, that's kind of crazy. You know?
I also saw they brought, at least there's one vehicle I've noticed.
Yes. There's a bunch of vehicles. Vehicles do have a popularity to them. I do like the legendary one in white because it creates angel tokens. That's kind of cool.
That's the one I noticed. Whenever it attacks, it creates two 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying vigilance that are also attacking.
But it's an 8 mana vehicle, so I mean, it is expensive to get out. Oh, it's
expensive to get out, yeah.
But when it gets out, it is very powerful. Well,
but there are things that, cards that normally lower artifact costs, though, too.
Easily, or it's like things to get them out, things like a fabricate or something. No. And I like their take on gods in this one, more than any of the other sets I have to say right now.
Yeah, the gods are really interesting.
basically all they have for any of the gods is they come back into your deck a couple cards down.
Like, yeah, 3 cards down it seems to be the average.
I have to say, like, the concept of like gods and the magic was very unusual when they introduced it in Theros, but I feel like in Theros they were kind of insanity to a degree. They were overpowered. Granted, there were times that they weren't creatures. There were times that they were enchantments, but it was like very easy because it was the number of like permanents of that type of like colors that the thing was to get it to be a creature. I'm like, that's not difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, like I do like the zombie theme, just because I'm always a big fan of like the zombies as part of the deck. So I'm glad about that. It makes sense for like the opponents. I'll be interested. Like they give hints at the storyline here. I'm afraid like this is one of the ones that like reading the flavor makes me kind of actually want to read the book for it. Like, because they've put out novelizations of the first part of like this Ravnica block, as they kind of have it as, the first 2. But like this is the one that I feel like, oh, you know, as a person who likes lore, maybe I'm interested in this one.
Yeah. I definitely would say this one is, if you love Planeswalkers.
Yes.
Just because now that they brought the uncommon ones in, there's a lot of Planeswalkers.
Yeah, they have quite a number of them. And I do have to say, like, they certainly made Nicol Bolas seem like a very powerful thing. Unfortunately, the fortunate thing about him is it's very hard to tick him up normally.
I haven't seen him.
Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, if you can see who it is.
I'm looking for him.
Okay, his special thing is he has all loyalty abilities of all other planeswalkers on the battlefield. That's a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
He ticks up for draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or permanent they control. That can be powerful, but tokens are a major counter to that. Then he ticks down 3 to destroy a creature or planeswalker, and for 8, each opponent that doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalkers loses the game. So again, that comes to a different win condition, which I've always been sort of like 50-50 on alternate win conditions.
I saw another one that had that too. That
Jace, I think, has it.
Yeah, Jace.
Where if you run out of cards in your deck, see
you win.
Like there's like the ones that you run out of cards in your deck. That's hard to do, unless you're like specifically spending a deck that can do that. Like I have my blue deck, which can draw 1 billion cards. If I can draw 1 billion cards, I can run out of cards in my deck.
Well, you could have a black-blue deck to be able to like discard the cards out of the library and draw.
It's the thing is, you could mill yourself almost too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's Bolas's Citadel.
Oh yeah, the one that.
Speaking about Bolas, yeah, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You can play the top card of your library, but you have to pay it life equal to its mana cost rather than pay its mana cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then also tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life.
Yeah, and it's made, I think, for like a zombie deck where you can create a lot of zombie tokens.
Yeah, it's a token deck.
Yeah. It's like, if I'm playing a token deck, this is a good way of killing people in a black token deck. It definitely has a fearsome power level to it. Now, I think the only thing is, like, a lot of these abilities, like the token creation in this deck, really only seems to create 1 token, because the amass ability, it says put a +1/+1 counter on an army you control. If you don't control one, create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token first. It seems like this ability is just made to create 1 really big token.
Right.
Which is an unusual ability, I have to say. But it's an interesting set already as it's building out.
But you make a black-red deck because red is good at creating goblin tokens. Like the best one I saw there, it was the legendary goblin, the Krenko Tinged Street.
Krenko, I think I would actually like in my one of my Zoblin deck, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
I think I have a different version of Krenko in that deck because that one was a little. I think I would call that version a little better, but this version, even it's pretty good because it's.
Oh yeah, well, whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to its power.
Yeah, so if you have ways of getting its power up beforehand, it's a lot of goblins.
Yeah, and red has ways of like fire breathing and pumping up power.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, this thing has a lot of power. Here's a crap ton of tokens, and now since it's a by black-red deck, I use the amass to get those tokens really big.
Another thing I think I have to say is, from looking at all the planeswalkers, even the uncommon ones, I think Magic has done a very good job of balance this time. None of them feel awful. Like, if people would recall, like, the original Tybalt from one of the Innistrad blocks was awful. He was the cheapest planeswalker, but he had awful abilities, and he was just kind of stupid. They put a uncommon version of him, which makes sense, but it's just opponents can't gain life, and he creates devil tokens that when they die, they do damage. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, even one of the lowest powered ones, which is black, Dareville Rogue Shadow Mage.
Yeah.
He's only has a 3 power, costs 3 mana. His tick down's 1.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning of your opponent's turn, or opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, it deals them 2 damage, and its tick down is target player discards a card.
Oh no, it's perfect for a discard.
Oh yes, you can only use him. You'd only be able to use his ability 3 times before he vanishes. But
maybe you just have him in there for that ability in a discard deck. That's the other thing. Yeah.
And also, it makes your opponent really go, ooh, do I want to play something
and possibly take damage? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very interesting. Like, there's definitely very good tribal zombie. The Planeswalker rework, almost I would call it, has been very good. I have enjoyed a lot of the quotes and stuff. I think they've done a very good job of building story with that, of reading through it. Like a good example, I think, which is really kind of funny, is this chain whip Cyclopses. You say this is 10th District, not Rubble Belt. But when Smash happens, that Rubble Belt. Rubble Bat, state of mind. It was from a Cyclops philosopher. I'm like, Cyclops philosopher. Right, that's a thing that, you could pretend exists. And it's just, it's funny,
Yeah.
I think a good example of a interesting thing with loyalty counters is a Johnny, who's the first of the of the multicolor ones. Is he puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. That's all he does. He puts loyalty counters on others. So it's like, if you wanted to play, this is the set that, like, in the past, people had always had, like, planeswalker decks, which were insanely priced. I feel this is, like, the set that they need, that if someone wanted to do a planeswalker deck, they don't have to go full mythic.
Yeah.
You could do one now.
And I just looked at the first one I noticed now that was just rare.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting the step up. So uncommon is only is just one thing tick down.
Mm-hmm.
Rare is 1 tick up, 1 tick down.
Yep.
And then the mythics are the way they've always been. Sometimes there's 2 tick ups, sometimes there's 2 tick downs and a tick up.
So it actually is very interesting that they did it that way. I like that. And that's one of the other thing that's new that we're not even, like, discussing, is that Planeswalker cards as themselves have an ongoing effect. They didn't really have that before. It was always dealing with their ticks ups, tick downs and stuff. It's not like, a good example would be like the new Liliana, is whenever a creature dies, you draw a card. you control dies. So it's like, that's a simple thing, which is pretty good. And it's just there then, you know?
Yeah. Like the first rare I've noticed was the Karn one.
Mm-hmm.
Activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. It has a tick up of 1 until the end of next turn. Up to 1 target non-artifact creature becomes an artifact creature with the power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. That's kind of cool.
And I like his last one, yeah.
Yeah, you may choose at -2. You may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game. Oh God!
Or in exile.
Reveal that card and put it in your hand.
I think there probably will be rulings depending on the type of gameplay you're playing with it. But effectively, that's sort of like, I would have a sideboard of artifacts that maybe you could use him to play it.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, it's probably going to be, a sideboard thing.
Well, the other thing about it is Karn, all the Planeswalkers are incredibly themed to what they've always been. Like, the new ones, they're fine. But, like, all the old Planeswalkers who we've had versions of before, they're themed to it. Like, Karn, he's themed to artifacts in a set which, other than a couple of vehicles, has, like, 3 artifacts. That's it. So, by giving him that ability, it's basically saying, like, yeah, you know, and activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. He would be great both in an artifact deck and anti-artifact deck, you know? So, and is he so great overall in this set, if you're playing just this set? I'd say maybe not. But, you know, it's, the other thing is, though, his tick-up ability, technically speaking, because yeah. Because, if you think about vehicles, if you tap a number of creatures controlled, this vehicle becomes an artifact creature until the end of turn. He can change a vehicle into something. Because it just says it has a power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. Usually they're more expensive than their converted mana cost. So basically, It makes it a bigger thing, makes it a creature, and it gets all its abilities of being vehicled almost.
Yeah.
And that actually might work. That's like the big thing in this set that I think would work interesting. But it's sort of like you break any of them down, and it's very interesting. They also have another 5.
They're definitely themed really well.
And they also have another 5 mana card with Niv Mizzet Reborn, which I think I was reading up today, actually, when I was looking for just like all the news and Magic, and someone was talking about the fact that they designed him with the idea that he would work with the guilds very well. Because his ability is you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and for each color pair that has exactly those colors from among them, you can choose a card and put it in your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you would draw a hand of 10 cards, and it would have all 10 pairs of colors, you get all those cards in your hand.
Nice.
It works well with the guilds, as they said. So it's very interesting. I definitely think there's still some things that are missing from them showing in this set. We haven't seen Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, yet, which will be a major, I think, thing to kind of show off.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to show everything.
Not like to right at the last minute. Yeah, that's true. They'll keep it for the last kind of second thing.
Yeah. You don't want to spoil everything too soon, because then it's like, oh, there's nothing to show now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they do have a land that you can proliferate, so... Oh, yeah, that's right. They do have proliferate back. From Scars block, Scars of Mirrodin.
Right.
Which, it's Karn's Bastion, like the land. 4-tap proliferate. I like that a lot, because I always like to proliferate as a mechanic, especially when it came to artifacts, and I think that's really cool that they put that there. Did they have... some populate. I forget the other. It's like the amass, proliferate. You see a little bit of, and I forget. There's like one other ability that we're seeing. Like, well, there's a couple other like keyword abilities that have returned that are interesting ones that are not normal ones to show up, and I'm not remembering them because my brain likes to forget.
Your brain never. It's a steel trap.
That's horribly inaccurate.
I know it is.
Oh,
I was
wait.
making a joke.
Oh, that's right. Well, anyway. But, no. So, I think we probably will hit on this set a little bit more once we get, like, the full list. Maybe it comes out and we can learn a little bit more. But I did want to kind of hit on that I am actually really enjoying it, mainly because of the Planeswalker thing. I think that's the thing that Planeswalkers needed for the longest time. It's sort of like Legends for the longest time were only rare. There wasn't Mythic Rares back in the day. They were only rares, though. Then they've sort of moved them away from rares. It's taken them forever, but they've done it over time. And it's done better for the concept of Legends, so...
Right.
I think it wasn't until, like, the Kamigawa set that they first did that. That they had, like, uncommon Legends, because that was, like, a Legends set. And they've done it occasionally here and there after that, but... It's made it that Legends were something better. Also, Legends were always never just Mythic, they were also rare, too. So, I mean, they were always better that way, too. Can't we have done that with Planeswalkers until now? No! Anyway. I could complain a lot longer, but I probably shouldn't. Let's move on. So, I did want to also talk about, moving on from Magic, is something else that Wizards does. Acquisitions Incorporated the book. That's the way to say it. It's about starting a fantasy business, or like even being a member of the Acquisitions Incorporation business in their world. It's playing 5th edition. It's new backgrounds, character options, information like on that they've used, they've produced. They set it up that you could use it in, of course, Forgotten Realms or any other plane if you're going to do it. It's a very interesting thing that it's fantasy business endeavor, which is definitely something that I have seen, like, as a concept before, is like going fantasy business, but never to this degree. Because don't you have that story about, was it you and Poirier who never went on the adventure, or it might have been Chad? There was someone that never went on an adventure and started a business.
No, it wasn't me.
That must have been our friend Chad. That he was playing a D&D game, and they never went on the adventure, instead just started a business and made it successful. And that was their entire adventure.
You know, it works.
I know it works. It's like, it's fine. It's a different type of adventure.
Yeah.
So it's this weird, unexplored place in general in Dungeons and Dragons, and they're taking the spin about using the Acquisitions Incorporated games that have always been at the PAX, which are one of the big, like, more comedy oriented ones. Like, you got your Critical Role shows, but those are they're just straight D&D. They're the big famous ones anyway. The people do interesting voices, interesting adventures, that they've made themselves famous. This is the one that's, like, I feel like is the other big one, but it's the one that actually has a lot more comedy because it's relatively, like, funny people are doing it kind of thing, Right. It's the two people that do Penny Arcade and I can't remember, one of them does another, like, webcomic and stuff that's a pretty funny one. So, I mean, to be the story writing, you have to have at least a little bit of humor to you, probably. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that they're doing it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely taking it in another direction. So,
I'm all for it.
And it's levels 1 through 6.
Yeah, they have an adventure that'll take you through there, so you can just do a kind of exploration / strip mine for profit kind of adventure. So it's like it's got a small adventure. It's got character options, and it's got options for a different style of Dungeons and Dragons if you wanted one. Like, it's like merchants. It's if you want to play a merchant game, this is the business side of things. So, yeah, cool. Yeah, I think they talked about it at PAX East, and the book itself is coming out in June. So, if you are interested in running a business-oriented Dungeons & Dragons game, hey, they're going to have it out there for you.
Cool.
Yeah, no. I mean, it opens up the idea of a lot more of these game types that they might have material for in the future, too.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the kind of book that I would want more of, so that we would see more D&D books, but they're more almost specialized, but still interesting enough to get a lot of the general public, I guess is the way you put it. You know? That it fills a niche that works very well. But anyway. We got a bunch of topics, so let's continue to move on. I want for us to talk about Space 1889. This is one of those ones that I always enjoy having an excuse to talk about, because it's such a weird and interesting setting. It is steampunk sci-fi. Is that probably a good way to describe it?
Yeah.
It's Thomas Edison invented space travel and allowed people to colonize planets. And it turns out there were people on Mars when he went there. There's like a race of people there, so Martians are real. Hurrah! I guess there's no, like, super... The excitement's up to you on that one. So...
I think we did talk about this when it was still on
in the
Kickstarter.
Yeah, we might have talked about it like it was in development and Kickstarter and stuff. And so it's formally out now. It's 228 books, so it is a massive book that gives you a full overview of the planet, dividing into 8 regions and all the people that live within those, including all the various Martian groups and human groups, because there's apparently British, German, French, Belgians, Japanese, and Russians who have all made colonies on Mars. So you definitely have a lot of different nationalities, because it's also, you have to remember, it's late 1800s versions of these people, too. So they're very different groups than you would imagine.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And of course the British are being colonial and trying to war against the militaristic Ordnorian Empire in the Central Basin. That sounds wonderful. Oh, British, you're up to your old tricks. But of course they weren't old tricks in this time. They were normal tricks.
Tricks are for kids.
Mm-hmm. Man. It does like give you information on like Martian technology, the like steampunk technology that humans have brought. So there's a lot of material to this book that would definitely expand your Space 1889. I think we've talked about like the Mercury and Venus books before, which were kind of like I think one of them was like jungles or something with dinosaurs, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. They are the strangest and also the most Victorian, like Jules Verne. Where's the other one? Shoot, it's Jules Verne, and I can't remember the other one. H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells, yeah.
Yeah, those folks, and their crazy stories that they came up with that are very interesting, but also kind of crazy. And it takes a lot of that, and it's kind of cool. So, I'm glad that they put out the Mars one too, and that is this big of a book.
Yeah.
The more information on these kind of worlds that they build, the greater is, I think, for building cool stories in it too, because it's both historical and sci-fi at the same time, and steampunk. So I mean, it's like this weird mix of stuff that makes it very interesting.
Agreed. I really would love to test out this system at some point.
It's actually one of the ones on my short list of ones to potentially test out. I kept forgetting about it. I'm like, Space 1889. It should be on my short list of ones to actually make a game about rather than just to test it out about. You know, like testing it, that'd be fine. I'd love to do that too. But like to actually dive into this one, this is one of those ones that I don't even have to test it to say, just because of the setting that they set up. I would love to either run it or play it.
Yeah.
So.
I definitely agree with that.
Yep. So, Space 1889, the Mars book, is available now from Modifius. So you can check it out and get it if you want. Let's keep going, though, because we still have a couple more topics we do want to hit on before the end of today. And I want to talk about bubble tea. Now, this is one of those ones that when I looked at it, it took me reading about it to actually get an idea of whether I wanted to talk about it or not. Because there's always a lot of little board games coming out, and we can't talk about all of them.
Right.
And the entire concept behind, like, bubble tea, that it's like, it's something that's, like, Taiwanese and kind of became popular a lot of parts of the world. It's, well, I think you are in Taiwan. I don't know the origins of bubble tea off the top of my head, but it's your most... Welcome to the most popular bubble tea shop in Taiwan. Basically, that's what you're running. You're trying to create the most popular bubble tea shop, and you can basically play on your own, or there's actually competition for up to 1 to 5 players of developing your own little shop. Which I thought that was the more interesting thing about the entire thing, is you can have a 20-minute game about mixing drinks, because they actually have like a little container that you shake up with dice in it, that when you deal it out, it gives you an idea of the types of things you're supposed to be providing and creating. And I'm assuming then whoever creates it, or who is able to create it first, gets the gets the points, and then you keep going for a certain amount of time until that's better. Until there's a winner. But it's that concept of that you have like a little shake thing that you throw out dice to. It's the right level of dexterity without actually having to have dexterity kind of thing, you know. You got a little interaction with that, and I like that too. So, I don't know if they have the rules. It's open for pre-order, and they're planning for a June release for it. June release for, I guess, the pre-orders, and July is when it's the formal release, and will probably go out to all the brick-and-mortar stores. Sounds like. So apparently, like, there's different, like, things you're messing with, like the amount of bubbles, the sugar, the ice, which will affect the taste of the drink. I don't know if that's true at all.
No idea.
Yeah, I don't know enough about bubble tea. I know it exists, but I haven't really had any myself ever, so... You roll the dice and match the order by stacking tea-based cards and transparent ingredient cards. And you have to serve the customer fastest to win, I guess, the rounds. So it's interesting. Pretty young children get into it. And it's only 20 minutes, so... That seemed like an interesting little unique take on some various mechanics.
Yeah.
Now, we're good to move on, right? Sure? Good?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dungeon Nights.
Dungeon Nights are like dungeon days, man.
Thank you for that. So, it is done by Trollish Delver Games, who we've talked about a couple of things for. I think we even had someone on from Trollish Delver in the past to talk about things. I'm pretty sure we did. Didn't we? We sure we did. I don't know.
Probably.
I got bad memory. But anyway.
I'm not 100% sure myself.
See? It's my bad memory, and you're not 100% sure, and we're just working with it. Anyway, so they put together what they call... It's a role-playing adventure for, like, old school. It's characters made with races, classes, and cultures based on the Avenor setting is the background, which I think is a setting that they've had for some material in the past. Or it's being established more in this one. everything is in the book to start with Adventure in Avenor, bestiary spells, players, easy to use combat system. So it's got its own system. It's made to be very simple, easy, and it allows itself to be in all kinds of games because it's the it's OSR system, which I think is the system that they've used before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a simple system in a way. So that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a very easy, still old school feel, but simpler system indeed. Old school revival system, as they call it, which is basically an old, like using kind of like I think updated older rules. So it's got a lot of feels of the older rules, but some of the streamlined stuff that we've learned about nowadays. So it feels like an older game without having to be a slog like an older game. I haven't had a chance to fully test out old school revival system, but I've read up on it a little bit before. I knew I did. So it's an interesting one, and it is compatible with any old school revival system. And again, it's another one of those games that you can just... It's a pay-what-you-want game, too, so they suggest you give $5 for it. But if you really don't want to give them anything, you technically could. I would say don't be rude, but again, you could also download
test it out and then give something.
Yeah, you could always download it first for $0 and then come back and pay them what you feel like you would earn from this thing. If it's completely useless to you, you don't have to give them anything. If it's something you feel like you love to play and run with, go ahead and toss them some money. I definitely say support people like that, especially ones that will offer you something that you don't have to pay for. You know, give them something to support them, especially if you use it. But now, one I felt like I did want to talk a bunch about, just because it's such an interesting concept, and I don't think anybody's done a board game version of this, is a choose-your-own-adventure card game rather than a book. And it's being done by Z-Man Games, called War with the Evil Power Master. So it is based upon a book. So I think it's based on a choose your own adventure book that already exists. So very well, someone could have played it already, kind of thing.
Right. No, that's definitely interesting to make a card game out of that.
No, I say so. The look of it is very choose your own adventure. I'm sorry, I see that and I'm like, oh my god.
It also looks very like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's both of those combined, and I love it. The entire box looks like one of those choose your own adventure books you would get like in the late 80s, early 90s. While like the images on it definitely harken back to 70s, 80s sci-fi, which I think these kind of books were probably based upon. And it gives you, it does give like a little summary of like the setup of the book. And you're a young team of heroes trying to save the galaxy, and is a cooperative narrative adventure. The thing is, apparently, which they do state, they do have a choose-your-own-adventure game series. I have never seen one of these before, and maybe I just missed it. Let me see. Or this might be the first one in it. Let me check. Board game. There does seem to be at least one other that was by Z-Man.
Okay.
It came out last year and we missed it. Somehow. There's a lot of
everything.
Yes, I try to hit the most interesting looking things if I can manage to see them. And it's great that, Z-Man Games has been working on this. This is the first one we're seeing. It's got simple little board, cards. Each player gets like a kind of character, has kind of items. There are like 9 locations you can go to, various challenges. The little character cards have apparently like little stats, I guess. Each one of them has like 4 stats. that all seem to start at 1, and it looks like items give you bonuses and things. They're starter items that people have. It's very interesting. I'd say if you're not sure about like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, this it's like, I want to say, okay, this is the second one. Sorry, I was trying to like think of words while also talking here. So this is the second one of the choose your own adventures they've come out with. Cool. As someone that grew up that I did have some choose your own adventures, it already hits me with a nostalgia factor. Granted, I don't have as much on the 70s, 80s sci-fi. I was very young in the 80s. You know, I didn't have the same experience with that level of sci-fi until after it was done, and then it's sort of like, it's not a nostalgia, it's a, oh, this is maybe a classic, or this is awful, you know, and you reflect upon it a little differently. But I didn't mind kind of things and stories like this, especially like Choose Your Own Adventures were always really campy and weird, but they were always interesting. And I would always like have some fun with one of these kind of books. So a little game like that you can play with your friends seems really cool, I do have to say.
No, I think that's really interesting. I enjoy that stuff as well, so I would definitely check this out.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's only $25 too. And for something that's the thing about it, because it's a choose your own adventure, it's going to have a lot of replayability anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they do say it's... So I'm guessing there's more characters because there are 9... Or so there's 4 character cards, 9 startups. The thing is, they say it's from 1 to 8 players, but I don't know if that's accurate on the Z-Man's product site. They do say it's 60 minutes to play. So I definitely want to like check out the rules, which hopefully they'll put out eventually anyway. Or see the box for when it's formalized to see what they say on that for players, because they sort of say it, but I'm bad at reading at the side there. So
let me say,
you kind of want to turn yourself
10 plus 1 or
above
something.
Players. I don't
1
know.
or above players. So I think you can do it solo, or you can do it with as many people as you want.
There's only 4 characters is the problem, so there's got to be something to it other than that.
Maybe it's 1 to 4.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is there's 4 character cards and 9 start item cards. So I see those and I'm like, maybe there's something...
I would say there has to be a cap of 4.
There might be also something for playing with higher players that we don't know about. Maybe there is, and we just don't.
Yeah.
You know. There might be a way to play with 8 players, up to 8 players, and we just don't know what it is. So. But, no, it's a cool nostalgia fest, and I'm really glad that they put out something like this. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of awesome. That's definitely got me, like, thinking, ooh, neat. This is one that I would probably want to try, actually, very well. There's always those ones that you say to yourself, that's cool. Maybe if one of my friends has it, I'll try it. This is one of those ones I said to myself, oh, maybe, you know, I could get behind getting this one. So. Let's move on, because I got one more main topic to handle. We've kind of been blowing through these a little bit, but since we had a lot of extra topics, I just did want to get us through these relatively. I want to talk about Ticket to Ride London, which has been announced now. So it isn't out yet, of course, because it's just been announced. And it's Days of Wonder, the same people that do all the normal Ticket to Rides. So if you're a fan of Ticket to Ride, bam, we got a new version of things for you.
Oh, it is 1 to, just going back for a second, it is 1 to 8 players.
They say that.
I found, yeah, so I don't know how, but it is 1 to 8. Sorry.
Yeah, as I said, there must be some kind of trick we don't know about that for playing that. For higher level players. There probably is. You know, again, it could be something as simple as maybe you need more than 1 copy of it to play with higher players, but you can't.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So, the thing about Ticket to Ride London is it's vastly different than any of the other ticket rides that we've had, because most of those are set in like 1800s, early 1900s, a feel for it, you know? This is set in 1970s London. It's supposed to have a feel of. Now, granted, the feels of Ticket to Ride are more just aesthetics, and that's it. They're never anything like super deep, but it is a definite one. And it's all about, rather than placing trains, double-decker buses and placing it between like historical or like landmark sites in London. So basically, you're running a tour guide service through London and making a tour route.
And this one's definitely quicker than any of the other ones, too. Because their estimated time is 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's not long at all.
2 to 4, but it's also only 2 to 4 players.
Well, I think it's like 5 players at max for the others, like 2 to 5. Yeah. So it's just one player, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But normally tickets to ride take a lot longer.
Yeah, that's true. And this is, if you see the game board, it's a lot smaller. It's a very simple one. It's like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad, but it's like a quick version of Ticket to Ride. It's Ticket to Ride almost light, because it is made to be played much quicker than the others. I'm curious as to how much they'll be retailing it for. Oh, $20. There you go.
Okay, actually. So it's also cheaper.
Yeah. So it's like if you want like a quick version of Ticket to Ride, here's the game, you can play it. No, I like that. It's taking the Ticket to Ride concept and applying it in a different way that works well. The idea of like creating bus routes around London to take tourists, it's like train. It's a similar concept, but it takes that, and especially because they made it a smaller, lighter version of the game, I think that's where it wins for me. Like a lot of Tickets to Rides, they're not bad, but it's sort of like when we went from America to Europe. Not only did we change maps, we added some extra concepts to it. You know, I feel like that's why I liked Europe sometimes, because there's extra complexity. But I also didn't mind America because it was also sometimes simpler, and simpler is not always bad. So it's like I felt like both of them had their place, and there's a lot of Tickets to Rides that I'm not always sure that they need it, because I don't know if they're adding in enough of those extra things or changing enough things to make it not just a reskin, to make it like a different version of Settlers. There's base Settlers, and then you can play Seafarers, or you can play Knights and Cities, or they put like a Barbarians one, and some of them you can play together, but all of them are based around the same base game. They just add and change little mechanics to make it a different experience, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Same can be said with at least some of the Ticket to Rides, and this is one that I would say would be on that list. It's taking the same base concept, just doing it in a different enough way, a smaller, quicker version of it, that I feel like it works then.
Yeah. So. No, I definitely like that. You know, it's almost like a travel version.
Yes. I don't know if you necessarily could travel with it.
Well, no, but you know, it's that, hey, I want a Ticket to Ride experience, but I don't feel like lugging the box, and I don't feel like, you know, taking that much time.
It might be travel, like, not that I could play it on a vehicle travel, but maybe I could travel with it, and I could play it wherever I get to very easily.
Yeah. Like, if you're taking it to a con or something, it doesn't take as much room in your bag.
No. The Ticket to Ride Europe box is definitely big enough that I would not want to, unless I have a specialized, like, board game bag, I'm not lugging it with me to some place. This is one that I would be able to say, like, oh, I could probably slip it into my bag with everything else, take it a lot easier. Or, like, even, like, going on vacation. It's a lot better for, like, rather than taking a pile of board games or hoping that wherever you're going has a pile of board games, I could pick this easier, smaller one with me. I could go camping with it, you know, or something. Or, like, if you travel to the beach, you have only so much room for a family in a hotel room. There you go. And so Ticket to Ride is definitely more of a family-oriented game because it's ages 8+. Hey, there you go. And I like the fact that it's quicker, too. So it's, like, something you could definitely sit down with and have a quick game of. And they got the rules available. Oh, that's awesome. I just noticed that.
Oh, nice.
They have 2 pages of rule. That's it. A very simple rule book. I don't know if they'll have any more on the formal releases, because this is just it's more of an announcement at this point in time, and it's coming out in July. But the rules that they have available now are just 2 pages. So it's relatively simple. I like that. So cool. So, Ticket to Ride London. If you love Ticket to Ride games, I think I could highly recommend this one. Just from the fact of what it exists and what you're supposed to do with it. It looks cool. It's good for better transport and for a little quicker Ticket to Ride games. Here you go. So, it's one that I definitely would want to test out maybe sometime too. Well, we've handled all of our normal topics for today, all of our base topics that we had listed out to talk to you folks about. Now is our opportunity to go into some of our regular segments that we have every week. Of course, the first one, we don't have a game for, unfortunately. We didn't have a lot of chance to play through and test out some new stuff over the past 2 weeks, so our deeper discussion is we don't got anyone for you for this week. Sorry, folks. We don't have one for that. But we can run into our Kickstarter corner. So, Joe.
Unfortunately, with my scheduling today, I did not get a chance to do Kickstarter.
Let me just do one and we'll call it a day. I do have one I wanted to talk about. This is one that I actually originally seen on Twitter. I don't have a lot of opportunities to check Twitter. If I follow you on Twitter and you follow me back, you've noticed that sometimes I miss entire weeks of stuff. But this week I checked a few times on Twitter and I saw someone talking about this one. And then I saw something else about it when I was doing my research for this week. And I decided to check about it. It's called Lancer. Let me put the... Oh, we got a question in chat.
Ooh.
Sure. I'm sorry. I was too busy talking. I missed chat there for a second. If you want to ask your question, go ahead and put it in. I will answer to the best of our abilities. I'll pause to talk here. Anyway, so Lancer is like... They say it's about... mud and lasers and mechas. It's basically a mecha RPG, which there aren't a lot of mecha RPGs. Like BattleTech is the major one I always think about, because that's the classic kind of one, because it's based upon the miniatures game, the mecha miniatures game, and they had one version of it. And it's meant for tactical combat, customization, narrative play. So I like when they have options. Like a lot of times when you talk about like a type of game, there's options. For mecha RPGs, it's BattleTech or something that's open-ended like Besom, which allows you to build your own. But Besom is an open-ended system anyway. There are very few like specific ones like BattleTech, so giving a number one. So they got a background on a kind of military science fiction, mythic science fantasy setting that they're kind of putting together. So it's got a little bit of science fantasy to it also, which is always cool. It's meant to be rules light, so it's got to have some basic rules that you need outside of the mechs. So like when you're your person and doing your role-playing aspects, it's meant to be more narrative, how you role-playing things, and then it goes into like a tactical combat kind of thing when you're in your mech, where it's about teamwork, big movements, things like that. There's modular progressions, because guess what, you're customizing your mechs. That's always something that that when you look at about mech games, that you need a big thing of customization and gear, systems, and equipment that the character and the mech are going to have. It really needs that, and heavily does. And if they're claiming a good amount of it, that's great. It's best of 3 to 5 players. Could be one shot, could be campaigns. They take a lot of influence from a lot of sci-fi kind of things, some mecha things too. And not only in a mixture of stuff that might be. They are focusing, it seems like, a lot more on some Western mecha and sci-fi things, with only a little bit of stuff from things like animes, like Evangelion, because in that one, when you're only mentioning you're going after things like Evangelion, that's like classic, and that would be like the more organic mechs, rather than like if you're talking anime mechs, a lot of people think Gundam for big, heavy, really robotic. So they're going for a more like organic mecha feel, which I think is also cool in the interesting way they're setting it up. So the thing is, it's got 27 days to go. It is funded beyond belief. They wanted 46,000. They've reached nearly 400%. No, they've reached over 400%. I'm sorry. So they certainly have funded themselves as of yet. They talk about why they want a Kickstarter. Let me just check. They've got a pretty interesting list of backer rewards. They got a bunch of stretch goals, which they currently have all their stretch goals unlocked. Let me put it that way. They blew through all their stretch goals in the first 6 hours of the campaign. And they are planning some other stuff that they've mentioned, but they have to put it together, basically. They've gone higher than they were expecting in a way. So they are hoping to put out some other stretch goals like other book ideas that they're going to go for, and put it together. And for $20, it gets you a premium copy of the PDF. Any future digital stretch goals, any future social stretch goals, and what they call long rim mechs. And for $55, you could also get a hard copy of the book and all that stuff too. So
cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's Lancer. It was a cool looking one that I thought to talk about with everyone. Let's move on though, because hey, we got at least one more regular segment that we usually have here on the old thing, and that's our week in tabletop, where we talk about all the tabletop things we've done over the past week, and in this case, the past 2 weeks, because we missed last week because Joe was still recovering from some dental surgery, and I ended up just having to get ready for a wedding. So that was the next day. Not that I was as majorly involved with it. I was not at the wedding party, but my niece was. So, but anyway, so why don't we start with? Did we play 2 Saturdays ago? I can't remember.
Oh Jesus! I know last weekend we didn't.
We did Sundays at the tabletop both weeks. I think yes, because last week was Victorian Masterminds, because I found a version of it, and we managed to get Blaze to play it, because we've played it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I really wanted us to do a 4-player game, but unfortunately Lee got busy right at the last minute for a little while, and I did hear back from him, later on. It was just some family stuff that came up at the last minute, and he didn't have a chance to get back to his computer in anywhere near in time. Fine. It happens. But the 3-player version of it was still fine. We've done that before. It's a fun game. We talked about it on the show previously. So great. And then the week before, we did Sheriff of Nottingham. Which...
That was a lot of fun.
I lost badly. Didn't you win?
Yes. I think I did eke out the win.
Yes, you were very close. I lost badly. It's like, I think I smuggled, the first round a lot, and so people kept, checking my stuff, even a lot of things. And Lindsay at the end there was just going all ham checking everybody, so it was like, oh, crap.
Well, she already had lost the game because she just threw money away.
She threw money away for very silly reasons. I'm sorry.
And then it was at the end, she's like, I know I'm not going to win, so I'm checking everyone.
And I was screwed regardless, because I could have either put one item in, because I think I had one smuggled item or illegal item, and the rest of my hand was illegal stuff. And I discarded and drew to try to get stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't count on it. I mean, I still eked out, but I didn't count on her doing that either, and I had a high smuggle thing in my hand, that I was trying to smuggle in at the last minute.
Because I think it was you and Blaze that were really high up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember which one of you won. You're both.
I wouldn't mind doing that one again at some point.
Yeah, Sheriff Nottingham's fun. It's if you can. It's a lot of luck too.
It's what you draw.
Yeah, it's what you draw, and when you can draw from the discards too.
Yeah.
If stuff gets played on top of your stuff, you're kind of screwed.
And it's bluffing.
Yep. There's a lot of combinations things, so it's an interesting game. We'll have to do it again. But I can't remember the Saturday that we did before that. I can't remember what we did, if we did anything. We might have been off
wasn't there something you brought that... No, that was the Saturday before, wasn't it?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I know we didn't know because we talked about the one game that you got as a free thing.
Yes, the last time we did Godsforge the week before. So I don't know if we did
I'm
that.
not sure if we did something or was it.
Or it was another week off at because of some reason. It could have been.
It could have been that we just didn't have the people.
That's true. RPGs. I did Vampire last week, and I did D&D Madness in the Land both weeks.
Yes.
For Vampire, it became an interesting one because they found a chained-up abomination while they were exploring stuff. And they woke it up because it was a guardian that was made to be woken up. Then they managed to basically free it and not get killed by it, so there's that on the loose now. That's a thing that they did. And then, while escaping this place where they managed to recover one of the 2 legendary swords they were looking for, and this was an interesting one because the one legendary sword is supposed to drink the blood of others in order to empower itself, and this sword is supposed to drink your blood in order to empower you, basically, empower it. So it's kind of like they are opposites in a way. This is one that it's a blade without a hilt, basically. So you're supposed to fight without the hilt. That's why it bleeds you. Anyway, on the way out, they also then met. I can't remember their name now because this is the first time I've ever used them. Artificial were-cockroaches. That is a thing in World of Darkness. The company that tries to the corporation that fights vampires tried to make their own changing breeds through science. This one was a failure. Most of them are like captive, but a number of them have become free under, as they called it, the Great Lord Cockroach. Basically, the cockroach spirit, the werewolf spirit that's called Cockroach, freed them and basically was like, "You're working for me now. I'm going to convince my followers not to murder you." So, and I basically just I did a really good Michigan accent. So it's like, "Oh yeah, the Great Lord Cockroach has convinced us to come and save you." Yeah, we were like, "What's kindred?" And he's like, "Oh, that's vampires." And we're like, "Vampires are real too? We learned about these werewolves and things. I'm sorry, Garou." And then all of a sudden we're like, "Oh."
I think you mean Minnesotan accent, not Michigan.
I'm sorry, Minnesotan accent.
I'm like, that's not Michigan.
I'm sorry, it's Minnesotan. I apologize. Sometimes I get my Midwest accents mixed up.
The Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. So the Great Lord Cockroach, and they soiled themselves a couple of times because they might be giant cockroach monsters, but they're scared of everything, including themselves.
And now you're going Scottish.
I did start to switch over to Scottish there, but no. It was the funniest thing is Umber, who I was playing with. We met. He managed to hold up like 20 minutes before just breaking out at laughter of the absurdity of the entire conversation with the cockroach guy. I would say if you want to see something that's really great role playing, his ability to maintain it that long was impressive, and that is a good example of some ridiculousness that you play a serious face with. It shows you can have ridiculous concepts and things for a role-playing game and still manage to maintain it. So anyway, and then we did D&D twice.
Yes.
Last week you guys explored a ruined port town.
Oh, yeah, and found a vampire spawn.
You did find a chimera, too, but you avoided that.
We avoided the chimera, but we fought a vampire spawn.
Mm-hmm. You did very good against it. It could have murdered you a lot more than it did.
I think that was partially because we had someone who could spew light from their face.
Yeah, you had someone that could do radiant damage every turn. That actually did help you a lot. It prevented his regeneration completely, so it was not healing at all.
Normally, we did get a mild sunburn.
Yes. Normally it would have been healing like 10 health a round or something, and since it takes half damage from a lot of stuff, it would have been ridiculous. It would have.
Oh yeah.
It would have
Without
been,
her, we would have been screwed.
Yeah, it would have been much more of a slog, and it would have just done so much more damage. But so that was fun, and you got to learn some interesting things, and I feel like...
And we found some green rocks.
Yeah, you found some green rocks. which then was later identified as uncut emeralds. Because
Yeah.
I've seen uncut emeralds. They look nothing like normal emeralds. They look like green rocks. Yeah. That's the thing, is that's why I described them as, they're green rocks. They just look like green rocks with some junk on them. You have to really polish up an emerald and cut it into right shapes for it to actually look nice. Other than that, it's green rock. It's like one of those weird things is like, how many different rocks were people polishing in the olden days before the one discovered, oh hey, this green one looks really nice when I polish it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of them now. It's nothing
Impressive.
Like emerald. Yeah, it's just like it looks like some green shale or something.
Yeah, no. The uncut emeralds are just they're the untreated ones, just raw emeralds are just they are so not like looking like they could be a precious gem or something. It's kind of impressive how someone, it's like when you hear about something someone eats that's like a major dish somewhere, you're like, who was the first one that ate that? When did we learn that? When did someone say, I'm going to eat this and see if it tastes good?
Oh, blue cheese is the perfect story. It was a French shepherd who left his sandwich in a cave, or his lunch in a cave, and was sick for a few weeks, came back, and blue mold started growing through it, and he decided to eat it anyway.
It's like, why? You're like, this is kind of unusual. It's blue. Let me try it.
Yeah.
Well, it's French, so you have to remember, our friend Blaze always tells us the story that the French liked to preserve food through mold.
Yes.
The vats of fat, where you put stuff down into the fat, and the mold would grow on top, and only on top, and then you just sweep the mold off, pull the thing out of the fat, and it would be well preserved.
Yeah.
Lard preserved, with some mold on top. Anyway, back to D&D. And then they started exploring what they discovered would be a wizard's tower of some sort, but like a wizard organization. They're not sure if it's just like a wizard college, a wizard like training hall, something akin maybe to Hogwarts, or maybe it's akin to like the College of Wizards in something like Skyrim, or it could be just like a group of wizards that goes there, that there is training, of course. There's always going to be training in, like, Wizard's Tower. But you weren't sure how much it might have just been, like, research or anything else. It's hard to discover.
We also were defeated by 2 doors.
And defeated 3.
Yes. We burnt our way into the tower.
Yes, it was like it was a magically treated door that was resistant to a lot of damage. The thing is, I specifically made it that it could be damaged. It wasn't invulnerable to damage. But there was only 2 spells that would have opened it for you. None of you had that because you don't have a full arcane caster. And so I did mention specifically you did damage to it, but instead of actually attacking and breaking it down, which would have probably taken you 10 to 20 minutes, you decided to set a fire for 4 hours to burn a hole through it.
And we got a long rest.
No, you got a short rest, because a long rest would have been 8 hours.
Oh, true. We got a short rest in, and we burned a hole through the door, and then once I got inside, I was able to...
You just push it open. It just opens from the other side. It's just so, like, it just opens from the other side. That's how it's meant to be. That you need a spell to get in, but getting out's easy. But now it's a hole. And then there was the trapdoor, which stabbed you twice.
Yes.
There was a couple other, like, there was, like, the entire, like, disintegration orb thing, or crystal, that, I have to admit, 3 of the puzzles were great, and the last clue was bad. I understand that. I have to fix that one up. It's a little hard to understand.
And if it wasn't for the fact that we had someone raging, we wouldn't have gotten through that.
Probably not. Like, that's the thing, is because it was taking you a while to get, like, some of the clues. Like, you got the red one for blood very quickly. You guys were struggling with the regal one until you were like, hey, purple's a regal color!
Well, I did suggest that earlier on.
But they dismissed you.
They dismissed it because they were hung up on the languages trying to match. And it's like, no, the languages don't matter. Oh, well then regal. Purple.
Yeah, because I'm like, I was like...
The sky messed this up too.
Yeah, the sky messed you up because you were always thinking of stuff in the sky, which reflects in water, and can be clear one minute and obscure the next. That's basically what it was. It's like clouds can come in and obscure the sky. It's supposed to be blue. It reflects blue in the water.
Yeah.
But you were like sun. I don't know. It was like moonlight. I'm like, what? It was like
sunlight.
It was a couple jumps, which wasn't necessarily bad, but it was kind of like you were jumping a lot of hoops there. That was great. It was at least the right track and the right idea, which means it wasn't a bad thing to think about. But no, yeah, the one that was gray, I have to rework that part of the puzzle for proper publication, but that wasn't too bad for I can make very bad puzzles. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I also like that funny one suggestion after. Maybe once you do get one right, it lights up.
No, I think that was something that I thought about like towards the end of it, which I had already had you guys going through it for a while, is maybe giving some kind of hint about how many are correct.
Yeah, because that would help, especially since it's such a deadly trap.
Yeah. Even if they don't light up, if maybe there's like little like lights or something that causes or
maybe the crystal changes hue.
Yes, each like I don't know. They're
or a sound like a ding for everyone that's right or something.
Well, it would be something that like like a series of like 4 crystals above it or something that once you're done activating it, like a number of them blink a light on, like for correct or something.
For correctness, yeah, to tell you, okay, you got 2 of these right.
Yeah, so like you could go each of them glow for very easy, so you're like, oh, I got this one right, I can kind of trial and error a little bit more, or you can go like that's the next step, and the way I did it was like the most difficult step. And I guess it also depends on how deadly a dungeon master wants, but giving those kind of options is good too. But like I think for the particular situation we were in, I should have made it easier to agree anyway. But that was a door that you technically conquered because you got through it. And I can't remember. There's 2 other doors that you conquered, but
we said we conquered the front door by burning through it.
I forget the other door you lost to.
Oh,
the one that you couldn't unlock.
Oh yeah,
that took you forever to unlock. That when everybody was looking for a key, you kept like trying to like pick the lock for a while.
And you're like, okay, with enough time, you finally do it.
I'm like, the DC wasn't so high, but like it was within your ability to get. But you were rolling like not near it. I'm like, oh, this is gonna take a while.
No, the only things I critted on were like stealth and I think one perception that didn't matter.
Yeah, well, the perception was like, okay, this is a room that doesn't really have much in it. I can give you some details. And the stealth ones are like, awesome. There's nothing nearby.
I'm invisible.
Yeah. So far, you've had a trap and a hazard that have been left over in here that you've encountered.
Yeah.
Not to say that there might not be creatures in the upper levels. That's true. There could be things beyond these traps and hazards. But you haven't seen any signs of anything living. Not to say there might also not be more traps and hazards. You don't know. But
right.
I also felt like this was a good place for the right mix of exploration, learning, and some threats. So it wasn't like, we got a trap, you got to deal with it. Oh, there's this hazard, you got to deal with it. So anyway, it was an interesting session. I enjoyed it a lot.
Right. No, it was a lot of fun. It was just like
I do know that that last one was a little. I will agree. As soon as I finished reading that one, I'm like, I need a better clue this one. I thought about it too as I learned. I'm like, I have to figure out a way to give them some hints or something at some point in time to like get them on it. As you were trying to figure it out, I'm like, oh god, we need something here. This is not nearly as good as I want it to be.
Yeah, well, it was just also common things were defeated because of bad rolls.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Anyway. All right. Final segment time. Let's end today with Consult the Table, where if you have a question out there that you would like to ask us about pretty much anything, you can hit us up. We are pretty good at knowing about a lot of tabletop stuff, so RPGs, CCGs, card games, board games. If you want to hit us up with that stuff, good. If you got some kind of like nerdy question that can kind of relate to some of those, go ahead too. We know a lot about little things when it comes to nerd culture too, so we're good at answering as best of our abilities, especially related to it. And if you're looking for lore-based questions, I know a bunch of lore. I'm not an expert in any stretch of the matter, but I have a very good knowledge about stuff, especially World of Darkness, D&D for things like Forgotten Realm, and Magic. So, go ahead and hit us up. I don't think anybody has messaged us on our...
No, I don't see anything in chat at the moment.
Or on the Yahoo account, Discussing Tabletop. Let me just check, because I almost forgot to. Just in case there's something emailed to us. Because, yes, we also have an email, discussingtabletop@yahoo.com. If you want to say us to a message there, we can also answer it there. No, there's nothing there right now today. You can send it to the Discord. The thing is, any question, if we feel like we can answer it at the place you send it to, we'll answer it then. If it's something that we feel like would be much better discussed on this channel here, we'll check it out here and bring it in. So, I mean, that's it. Just send us questions. I've been answering a lot of questions about World of Darkness stuff on my Discord as of late. Just someone that's new there has been having a big chat with me, asking a bunch of questions. There's stuff that are little details that my normal videos on YouTube don't go into. So, hey, you know, I'm willing to answer those questions. So yeah, check it out my Discord. Either of our Twitters, which are linked down below, you can send us a message. The Twitter will notice it and answer it to the best of our ability. The email, or if you're looking at this now, if you're in to chat live, or if you're going to be there, like, you know, you can message me through Twitch, or just when I would eventually publish this up on YouTube. Check it out there. All right. So, hey, great show.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us again today. It was a fun one. We got to talk about a really bunch of interesting topics. Managed to get through them all right. Thank you once again to Joe for joining me. I always enjoy when you're hanging around with me and chatting the stuff.
Of course.
We'll both be back. We should both be back tomorrow evening for Sundays at the Tabletop, where we will be talking tabletop games. Playing some tabletop games together with a bunch of other friends of mine and having a good time. Of course, we'll be back for both Madness of the Land next week on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also check me out at 2 p.m. on Tuesday for Legacies of Kain if you're looking for World of Darkness there. And we'll both be back next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, for more Discussing Tabletop. Remember, check out all of my links below. Top right if you want to subscribe and give some extra support. Patreon's also linked down below if you want to give some real great support and get some great rewards that way. And hey, we'll see you next week. So, bye everyone.
Bye.